Hi, welcome to westcoastbellpottery.ca in Nova Scotia, Canada. I'm going to throw 2 jaws, 2 lids, and 2 knobs, and make it simple. So much ado about nothing, I guess. Anyway, but okay, I have about 3/4 of a pound here. Maybe just under that actually, but so I'm just going to center it as normal. I'm making 2 bowls basically with 2 different rims. This is number 516 clay from Pottery Supply House. It's a very smooth white stoneware. And colors and glazes seem to do really well on this clay body. If you're a beginner thrower, I have a whole series of 10 videos that I made early last year on becoming a potter. So you can look back in about January 2024 in my history, and I have a whole bunch. I did one about every 2 weeks, I think. I let them out. They escaped. So I'm just throwing a normal piece, but I'm leaving a thick rim. So even if you want it even thicker, you can just push your finger down on it like that while supporting the outside. It thickens up the rim a little bit. And I'm pushing the base in a little to grab a bit of extra clay, but not too thin, because I'm going to put some pressure down on the rim in a minute. There you go. So we've got a nice round, almost a teacup with a very fat rim. Then you take just a sharp needle and halfway across the rim, just make a cut about 2/8, a quarter of an inch deep, maybe 3/8 of an inch, depending on that thickness of the rim. Then I get my throwing rib, dip it in water and place it right in that gap and push down lightly, just enough to kind of make it open up a little bit, and then press to the finger on the right to kind of pull that rim out of touch. And you can leave that one till the end to press down, but I'm going to make a notch in the next to the base there so the wire can slip underneath easier, and I'm going to round it using this rib. It's already pretty round. Grab the water off so the clay doesn't soften down anymore. It also builds up on my hand. It's nice to wipe your hand off too. So it's a nice shape, so I don't need to play around with it too much, but I want to get all the water off I can. White clays that are very smooth like this, they're almost porcelain style, tend to get oversaturated with water, and then they'll end up with little cracks appearing and collapse. So it's good to get all that water off. So we've got a nice shape there. We're going to get all the water out of the inside the same with a sponge. If you take a long time to throw pieces, you may end up with collapses, and I'm sure you're aware of that already. But the faster you can learn to throw, the less chance the clay has to actually absorb water. Okay. And then what I sometimes do, if I need to, this one doesn't really need it too much, is I'll use the square end of that rib to kind of emphasize the inside area there of the shelf that the lid will fit on. And then always take a look at your shape to make sure there's no collapsing going on. There isn't. Just take a real close look and make sure nothing is. I'm going to fatten the rim just a touch there by pushing down with a sponge. You can use your finger too if you want to, because if you get a thin rim, it will chip easier. And then to get it off, you simply throw some water right at the base, and as it rotates, you pull the wire in and you go almost a full revolution and give a tug. So it's very slow. The water is pulled in with the wire. Before it goes all the way around, you give a tug and it comes loose. Got to be brave for that, I know. If you don't do that, you can take it off your regular way that you take things off. But we have a nice round sugar ball. This may be 3/4. The other one felt a bit light. I don't weigh my clay because I like things to be a little different. Especially with coffee mugs, I think that if you have all the same coffee mug and they all are identical looking, they're all the same height, they're all the same width, handles all identical, then when people come and try your coffee mugs, with mine, they pick every mug up and they want to balance it in their hands to see how the handle feels, how the weight is, the balance. So if everything's the same and they don't like it, then you've lost the sale. If you've got lots to pick from, people spend a long time picking the favorite. Same again, just as far as opening it up. I always do that twice from the shoulder area on the side to the center to compensate for the stretching I did as I opened it up. We actually went down to 2 degrees last night, and it's actually May 26th. Well, it's 27th today, but last night was the 26th. And 2 degrees, I actually lit the wood stove in the studio while I was working. And that's in the new studio. Okay, I've got a nice base shape on there, but I'm going to widen it. Maybe because I'm not leaving a thick rim, this will end up being a bigger bowl as well. And I'm going to curve it slightly in again, so it's more of a round, so when you get the sugar out, you know, you can hold it against the inside wall and the sugar would fall into the spoon anyway. But that's a choice. You can open it up more if you want to. Just a personal choice there. So grabbing the water out. You know, I always put that little groove in the bottom to help the wire go through. And then grabbing the water off. That's perfect. Now, this lid could be basically made to fit tight or a little loose, but the main thing is on the other lid that I was doing, I don't need to measure very much, but on this style you need to measure it accurately. There's my compass. Okay, so this one you need to measure the opening on the inside. Then you can take it off. Throw the water underneath. Slow turn and pull through before it goes through one revolution. You give a tug and it releases. See this? It's basically just a big round cereal bowl. Now you can make all these pieces different sizes, jars wise, and then just make your lids appropriate to fit them. So I'm just guessing at the moment. I just cut 2 balls of clay up and I'm going to see whether I can get, I know I'll get the one, but I may not be able to get the other lid out of this one. This one is to fit on the shelf. So up and down a couple of times just to center it. And this is basically a really shallow bowl. So just go down, don't too far. I like to leave a nice amount of clay on the center there, just so I can stick the knobs onto it. Okay, so this one I don't have to be very accurate because I can always cut it down a little bit. Let's see if it's very much similar to the others anyway. Oh, what do you know? It's identical. The size is identical anyway. See, that one is perfect straight away. Okay, so we like that. And then just take the water out. Get the stuff from underneath out of there. I usually put the sponge on just to get the water off too. So that was a good guess with the lump of clay. The weather has warmed up a lot in the last day, but it's still getting cold at night. So from 2 degrees centigrade last night up to 20 degrees today. Big jump. Okay, so getting this off, it's a little harder, but yep, first time. Sometimes they don't tug, but that's what we got, a little flat bowl. I'll steal some from the bottom so I can use more at the top when I do the rim. But I do think it may be too little clay here. There's something in the clay, I can feel it. A little bit of dry clay maybe in there. It's funny how one little thing can actually change the feel of the clay, but we'll go for it. There's something in there, I can feel it. And I'm going to make this very thin. It's like a little thump on my finger as it goes around. It's just there. Let's see if I can stop it and pull it out. See it, that little bump there? Let's see if it's hard. No, it's just a piece of firmer clay, but it really messes you up. So let's give ourselves a rim here. So what I do for these ones, it's too little clay I'm sure, but I'll show you the lid and I'll throw a bigger one. Put that shoulder thing of the tool where it right angles there, right in at the rim. And press down so it separates the clay and gives you a nice little shelf on the lid. And we'll see if I can open this up enough so it will actually work, but I think I'll need a bigger piece of clay. This would work on one of the other ones though. So, how much can I stretch it before it collapses? Yeah, it's actually I can see there's a little thin area where I stretched it, but we'll go for it. It might be usable. Let's see how much we have here to work with. Oh, it actually would work, I think. It's just a little bit small, but not much small. And I actually, by opening it flatter, maybe I can make it the right size. Oh yeah, it's the right size now. Well done. I didn't think, but you see that was really on the edge, and I wouldn't advise using too little clay. It's always better to have a bit too much clay. But it actually is fine. And then we're going to get the little piece of clay off the bottom so the wire will go underneath easier. And then throw some water down. And same again. Give it a tug before it gets through all the way. Ooh, well done. And I need another bat. It's holding its shape so it's not too thin. There you go, you can see what we got. So we have two lids, one has a rim and one doesn't. So let's hold you this one down so you can see. Those are the two lids. So will it fall off? All right, so next we've got to make, trim them to fit and put some knobs on them. Okay. And I'll give you another lid, just a bonus lid. Okay, so I'm going to measure. This is bigger than the other one. So that's the inside distance. And let's throw some water underneath it. And as the wire goes around, and then pull underneath, and before you go all the way across, you pull. And then just push straight away, because it sometimes doesn't pull right off, but if you push it straight away, it'll release. So there you go, a nice big sugar bowl. The advantage of this lid is you actually have a pre-attached knob. So this is the lid I usually make. When I'm doing things, I just want something straightforward and functional. Because it's quick, it looks okay, and it's easy to throw. Wet it, push down away from the center by about 1.5 centimeters, or sort of 1/2 inch, I guess, and then you push underneath there to get that knob formed. And you can push in a little bit more if you want a better knob. And then I push down, and then push out with your finger. When you think you've got it close to the width that you want, let's have a look. Yeah, it's just about the width I want. And throw some water. So a lot of clay left over from the knob there, in the knob rather. I just stick my little finger underneath there, and then I pull up, and then squish between my finger and little finger to take it out to what shape whatever width I think I need. And that is got to be a little bit bigger. It fits inside, but it'll be really close to the size of the rim, so I'm just going to open it up a bit more. There we go, that should fit easily now. And I think I could have grabbed some clay out of the knob when I first opened this and put it into the bottom to make it a little bit, it would have been bigger straight away. But it's better these are a little bit small than a little bit big. And you've got a really substantial knob on that, so you can do something with it, but you could also just trim it down. So I'm going to leave it, and then I'll do some trimming on that to actually reduce the size of it. And I think I'll leave this on the bat too. There you go, let's let you take a look. So that's a nice big knob with a big undercut underneath that'll fit right inside that jar. Here's another quick way of making the one lid. We're still only using like 1/4 pound of clay here, I guess. So simply don't go too thin, that's the big danger. You've got it flattened, and then you take your very wet kidney type rib, this wooden rib that comes in most pottery things, and then you slide it underneath, and then you simply throw across the top of your wooden rib until you think you've got the width of the thing that you want, and then let go slowly, drag your rib out, so it's kind of dried the clay underneath there as well. So you don't let this get too soft. And then you simply take the moisture off, so underneath if you can get to it, throw some water, just squeeze down like that and it pushes the water underneath. And then drag some of the wire and then pull through slowly, let go, and then you pull it off and it's going to fold up, but it's like a flat pancake that has a slight curve to it basically. There you go. And then put it back to a little cone. And this is very quick to do. Just use your little finger. You can shape any of the shape you want basically. I usually like to have a little bit of flap of clay that sort of comes out a bit so you can push that down, but then there's some water on your fingers. Put your knife underneath or pin underneath and just snap it off. And again, nice start with a cone. Get the size of knob you want. Wet your fingers. Push in. You can press down again to shape that little knob. And then wet your fingers again just so it's slipping, and then dig all the way underneath and you end up with little knobs. I think I might do a few of these because I like this knob shape. You could throw miniature pots this way off the hump. Okay, it's now time to actually put some lids on the pieces. And so the way I do that, I use a chuck to trim them to actually get the size right. Let me show you the jar that this is going to sit on. Okay, this is the one, and they're still movable. They're not quite leather hard, but as you can see, that's a pretty good fit on this jar. There's a little rocking, but by the time the glaze gets in there and all the sides will touch, basically that should be a fairly nice tight lid. So I don't need to trim it to fit, but I'm just going to place it on there. And I like to just trim off a little bit there. The chuck is really nice to trim on because it sort of holds it. You don't have to worry about it moving too much if you keep your finger just a little bit. So I like the chuck to trim on. Now it's, I threw these yesterday afternoon, and it's been a really nice low humidity day today, whereas it's been really humid for the last 2 weeks. But and then I have this tool, which is just a piece of Fimo clay with some sewing needles just pushed into it, and then you bake it in the oven. I think Fimo needs to be baked at like 340 or something like that. I can't remember, that's Fahrenheit. But then I simply get out of the way a little bit. I scratch the top area because these are just about leather hard, just under leather hard. So I do some scoring, which I rarely do. So just kind of bring up some slip from the surface when you add the water. This is why when you make the lid, you don't want to make it too thin, because you can actually press the lid down in there and it will sink right through. And let's hope I don't do that now, having said that. So this is really soft still, so I don't need to wet this part. So I'm going to place that on, and hopefully it's in the center. Let's see if it's centered. Just a touch off. That's probably close enough. And you can use your finger if you really want to see. So maybe I can pull back just a little bit. Then I just sort of roll it like that. And if you really want to be sure, because it's always good if you're joining something to have pressure from both sides, you can put your finger on the part where it's being pressed and just do that. And that will actually make it sort of stick a bit better. It's almost in the same place, but you probably slip it over just a touch. Okay, and then I like to use the back of the paintbrush here to just smooth that in. It's like I don't need to pick up a modeling tool. I just use the same paintbrush I'm gonna smooth it in with. So that's basically nicely put on, and then use the water that's in the bristles just to smooth it properly. I think it just moved. No, I don't have to feed the crows yet. It's only about 3 in the afternoon. They like to be fed about 4, but he's waiting already. Bring the knob on top, and you could make a bird as a knob or anything you want to do, but that's just a nice fitting little knob. And I think the jar itself, we were lucky with this one. It's a good fit. Sometimes I have to trim quite a bit off. And it's just a nice little sugar jar. Okay, so this one, oh, same size as the other one. So I've got to make this size, so that's a big area to trim, so I'm going to cut it off with the X-Acto blade. So I simply put my little finger to make sure it doesn't move, that's the main thing. This one is fairly dry. That's a good fit. So I'm just going to score it. So this one really needs to be scored because it's actually quite dry. Now when I trim and press down with my fingers, sometimes I get that little kind of a crease opening up underneath. So it's a good idea, not with a too wet a paintbrush, just to kind of brush some slip into there. It's where I'm stretching the clay. This white clay is a porcelain style clay, and it really does crack up very easily if you're not careful. Oh, perfect, much nicer. So the last one that I have to do is the one that has the really big knob, and it fits in there perfectly, so I don't need to do much to this one, just trim off the rough stuff. So we really don't want to make it any smaller because it fits perfect already. So get rid of that rough stuff. Make sure there's no rough in the bottom of the lid either. And that was it. So if you get really lucky, this is my favorite style of lid because for production pottery it works really well. There we go. And as a last thing to here, I've got to make a bird to put on one knob maybe. I think I have to do that too. but and the lid is on there. It's pretty centered. I didn't mean to do that straight away. Like I said, you can trim some of this off if you think this knob is a little big. So just like you trim your pot, you could trim your knob just by doing that. And then blow it all out. It's kind of squished down in a bit in the center, so I'm going to push that back. That was quite a soft piece in the middle there. And then where's my brush? I'm just going to smooth that over a little bit now. It's still a big knob. I could trim more, but I think it's fine the way it is. And of course, the last thing for the jar is you have to trim the bottom. Don't press too hard on the bottom there, because we know this clay caves in really easy. My gritty clay, the 455 Speckle from Pottery Supply House, doesn't have all the problems of these porcelain-like clays. But you get used to the clay body you're working with. And if you want to, you can do anything you want to these. I'm just going to do a light shattering on there. We'll put another line in here. I'm going to take any old chattering tool. If it's check to make sure it's sharp. If it isn't sharp, you can quickly, using these stones, you can use a grinder, but you can actually sharpen it just by, this is a coarse grind sharpener from Lee Valley. That's pretty sharp. Doesn't take more than a few seconds, and then it will chatter better. So we got a diagonal and a little shorter one there. Trying to think if I could make it. Well, I think it's pretty nice just the way it is. Don't mess things too much. We don't know when to stop sometimes, do we? Got a couple of lines down there to be some, identify it. And then I can go up the top there. Just to clean it up a little bit. So I'll do this to all of them. You don't have to hang in here for the rest of these. But that's kind of a nice chatter marking there. I could do it on the lid too, but like I said, how do we know when to stop? I think we know, but we don't know. Stop. Stop it.